An intellectual carrot, the mind boggles.
You see? You see? You're stupid minds! Stupid! Stupid!
Earth has had Santa Claus long enough. We will bring him to Mars.
I've been afraid a lot of times in my life, but I didn't know the real meaning of fear until I had kissed Becky.
One thing will be clear. It's not for man to interfere in the ways of God.
It's alive. Oh, it's alive. It's alive. It's alive.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Earth vs. Soup, episode 175. I'm Aaron Pollier.
I'm Darlene.
And we have a guest host with us tonight.
Hey, I'm Chuck, and if you recognize my voice, then I'm sure you realize we're watching a Godzilla movie tonight.
Yes, we are, and I'm excited to talk about it because I really liked this one. We have watched Mothra vs. Godzilla 1964. I grew up watching all the Godzilla films. We've talked about this multiple times. Chuck, you grew up watching all the Godzilla films, but I think both of us grew up, well, all of us here, right, Darlene, grew up watching the American versions of them.
Yes, we did. And
I was looking through like images online of Mothra versus Godzilla before we started watching this, and I had realized, there's like whole scenes with like U.S. Navy personnel that were in the American version that just aren't in the original. And I remember all of those weird scenes, and one of the conclusions I've come to, at least watching what we have watched so far, is that the American versions are much more goofy and weird.
And stupid.
There's a lot of stupidity in them, but the original Japanese ones actually have a lot more, I don't know, I don't want to say gravitas, but more, there's more meaningful stuff in it. If that makes sense. Do you agree with me, Chuck, or do you have like a different perspective?
No, I think as we're at the dawn of the kaiju era here, I think American producers just didn't know what to do with these. So was it a kids film? Was it an adult film? How do they bill it? How do they make it accessible to an American audience? So it seems like these first couple of films, with the exception of Godzilla, of course. That they were just trying to find their way and trying to figure it out.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. But like I said, it was stupid, which my definition of stupid is knowing better and still doing it.
Yeah, knowing better and still doing it. That's the American versions of these Godzilla movies. But this is also a little strange, at least to us who have watched many, many Godzilla films after this, that Mothra and Godzilla are fighting in this. Mommy and Daddy are fighting, and this is not right. Am I correct on that, Chuck? I heard you laugh.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's weird because they're friends throughout the rest of the series. I mean, the next movie, Ghidorah, it's not exactly that way. They become friends in that, so to speak. But yeah, it just feels weird that Mothra and Godzilla are just wrecking each other in this.
But it makes the understanding of how they came across it, how they
became friends.
The next one shows how they became friends. But one thing I do want to say about this movie is I realized after I'd watched it and thought about it that your point of view character happens to be the female.
Yeah. Yeah, the photographer.
So this was really a female geared kaiju film.
Yes, and here's the thing: like when it's billed, like the build characters, it's still the top build is Akira Takarada, who plays Ichiro in this, which is her brother, the cop.
But he doesn't have very much.
No, I'm sorry, he's not the cop. He's the other reporter. I'm sorry.
Yes, but he's not the viewpoint character.
No, it's Yunko. I think that's how you pronounce her name, right? Yunko.
Anyway. I am not sure. It could be Yunko or Yukio or
Yuriko is the actress's name, Yuriko Hoshi. But yeah, it's Yunko or something like that, Nakanashi. Anyway, We see lots of repeat actors in this from earlier Godzilla films, and this is where I start getting confused because I see characters that sometimes are playing characters that are similar to ones they have been played that they played before, and
You looked out about it too.
yeah, and I start getting confused about it because they're playing very similar characters. Um, Regardless, we should probably go into the plot and we can start kind of geeking out about some of these scenes. Do you have any like other opening kind of comments, Chuck, before we get into this?
Well, just something there, some little consistency between or the three films, Mothra versus Godzilla, and then our next review, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, is that when they were casting these, they brought back Ime Ito and Yumi Ito to play the two fairy girls in all three
Yes.
movies.
Yes, and I love them. I think they're fantastic. I think there's actual growth in their characters in these three films, like the first three Mothra films. So in Mothra, they're kind of damsels in distress, who pretty much have no agency at all. In this film, they're still in distress, let's say, but they're a little more in control of their destiny. And we go into Ghidorah later on, and they are fully characters on their own. They are there of their own free will.
They're a lot more autonomous. They're not really props like they were in the excuse me, in the first couple films.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, I'm glad that they came back. They were a part of a group called the Peanuts, if I remember correctly. So they were singers, and I think that there was another piece of music that was written for at least Ghidorah that they had to learn how to sing. Regardless, we should talk about Motha versus Godzilla here, and then we'll talk about Ghidorah later on for another review.
It
All right.
starts with a typhoon.
It starts with a typhoon, and my immediate thought was Rodan's here because there's all this wind, but it turns out it's not. It's a really stormy ocean, and it's on the coast of Japan as the storm comes ashore, and buildings are just being blown away by the wind and surge. And we see some really good model work again. I should also say that I will always praise the model work in these Toho films. I absolutely love the model work, but there's sometimes where the model work is exquisite. This almost approaches that exquisite part. It was just very well done. The water spray and all that. There's a scene that we now can talk about later. There's pumps that are spraying water into the ocean. You were convinced that was a real shot.
Yes.
I had to point out the fact that that was not real because you can see that the water is acting like it is slowed down at a low, they filmed it fast and then slowed it down. But it's right after the credits end are those pumps pumping water into the ocean. Do you remember that one, Chuck?
Oh yeah.
That's a model. Like those are miniatures. And that is exquisite model work.
Well, it's as much like the construction sets, when they're like doing all the digging, building traps and stuff for Godzilla and the like. I mean, in a lot of those, it's so hard. I mean, you can tell just with a practiced eye which ones may have actually been actual like stock footage of construction vehicles, but the majority of them, man, they just look so superb.
Yeah, and these pumps really were top notch. And we have two reporters who are Ichiro and Yunko. They are there to interview people that are a part of the recovery effort and to take photographs. Okay. And there's a local councilman. I don't know what his actual position is, but I called him a councilman. He's there and he's promising that the typhoon won't slow down recovery efforts. I will build as many pumps as necessary to pump out all of this water back into the ocean. So I guess this is kind of a below sea level area that has been reclaimed from the ocean at some point.
Korataya Coast.
Okay.
But the camera girl finds something floating in some water.
Yeah, she finds something that kind of looks like a blob of bismuth without any crystals in it. It has that kind of weird iridescent shine to it that bismuth has.
See, I was wondering, was that like a scale or?
See, I don't know. I don't know what the hell that is.
But
Now,
we think it was a scale because it was radioactive.
yeah, they it turns out that it's incredibly radioactive, and they've been just carrying it around for a while. Remember how crazy the Geiger counter goes, and they're like, "Holy crap!" Yeah, we've been carrying this around for a few days. Oh, you poor bastards.
Yeah, that was, I was kind of wondering. I mean, when you hear the Geiger counter go off, it's like, you start to wonder, shouldn't they be melting by now?
Yeah, I mean, so it has to be like a scale from Godzilla. That's basically what it has to be.
That's what I think it was.
Because it's not anything from Mothra, because Mothra is not technically radioactive. I think that Mothra might have like residual radiation from the nuking of Infant Island, but that's it. Like it's real residual. It's not like Mothra can lay down atomic breath or anything like that. So we then get introduced to our first kaiju of the movie, the monster egg. And this is where I'm baffled by the I don't know, the background characters that are like, "Oh, we're poor fishermen. We're hungry. We haven't had enough fish to eat. So we're going to go and capture this giant floating egg that is like 30 feet long and a couple stories tall at least. Its size kind of changes depending on the scene that it's in.
Yes.
But it's huge. They're going to go out on their boats, grab it, take it ashore, and eat it or sell it, right?
Well, they did. They sold it.
Yeah, they sold it, but they didn't even like contact the government that there's a giant, clearly monster egg that has floated to shore. Okay. So they get it on shore, and there's Professor Miura,
which was in the other one.
He was in the second Godzilla. He was in Godzilla Raids Again. He was one of the pilots in Godzilla Raids Again, the actor. The professor there, he's studying it, and then a guy from Happy Enterprises arrives to buy the egg. He's just going to buy the egg off these poor villagers. There's no security concerns that the Japanese government has, obviously. No one really cares. We're just going to let private corporations deal with this, I guess.
Yeah, but that'd be what I get from this. I kind of thought it was kind of stupid. Is eventually where the twins come in,
and they're like, "That's our egg." Yeah,
it would have been considered an international problem, because even if, say, a boat that was the U.S. washed up on a Japanese coast, they couldn't claim that.
Not if there was still personnel aboard. See, that's the thing. Like, the egg is clearly alive, right? It and you can't argue that it's the being inside is not intelligent.
Okay, it'd be like us stealing
it's weird. It's basic.
The white rhino from Africa.
Now you see, here's the thing. This is brought up later in the film, and Chuck, stop me again if you have something to like chime in on. The guy from Happy Enterprises full on wants to buy the Shobijin, buy them.
Yes.
To like, he understands that they are intelligent people, just like he understands that that is their god Mothra, who in the previous Mothra film has shown to be quite intelligent and self-aware. Okay.
And if I was the government at the point of that conversation with the young the girls,
the reporter or the Shobijin,
the Shobijin, I would have been like, well, whatever that egg does is your problem then.
Well, it is their problem. That's the thing.
The Happy Enterprises problem.
He ends up buying it for like 1.8 million yen, which I guess is a steal. It's a real steal when you think about it. Like, I always try to think that like maybe 1,000 yen to the dollar. So like he bought it for like 18 grand back in the 1960s. I don't know. That's still nothing. He buys this giant magical god egg for 18 grand. Oh, where were we? Okay, so they're going to they not only buy the egg, they're going to charge people to watch it hatch, with the knowledge that even with that knowledge that it's Mothra, and Mothra's just going to wreck everything around when it hatches, right?
See, I'm surprised they didn't hold out for a bigger, a bigger payout, because I'm sure the pharmaceutical companies would just be going nuts over that.
Sure, but I mean, in the end, this is a disaster waiting to happen. Like, there's no way that anyone can't think that this is all going to go to hell at some point.
Yes, but I believe what Chuck said. The pharmaceuticals should have taken over that.
Yeah, I know. Well, yeah, absolutely. But so they're gonna charge people to watch it hatch, and they're going to open an amusement park around it.
Yes.
Geniuses. Because nothing says fun and games for the whole family like a kaiju hatching and rampaging around for your children to be squished and turned into radioactive slag.
Well, that's right up there with Jurassic Park.
Oh, well,
okay?
I know. I understand that too. But so in the office of this Happy Enterprises guy, the Shobijin show up and they're like, "Hi, hello, we're here." And they're asking for their egg back because it's their god. And it turns out that like Mothra laid her egg on Infant Island, somewhat near the ocean, and that like this storm came through and eroded the cliff that it was on.
It was in.
Yeah,
it was
like
inside.
she buried it in soil or something like that. And the egg got washed out to sea, and this is the egg that they found. Okay, so these people, these freaking, I don't know, Happy Enterprises people are awful. They try to capture the girls, but the girls are like, screw this noise, we're out. These people are clearly just as evil as the SOBs from Mothra that were from the country that was not America. Whatever that country was called. Chuck will remember. You've said it before. It's Newkirk City is the city that they go to. I remember that. So anyway, they try to capture him. They get away, and then one of the reporters made it inside Happy Enterprises and kind of heard this whole thing. And the fairies, the Shobijin, come out and ask this reporter and photographer for their help. Okay. And this is where the Shobijin explain that Mothra was basically being a bad parent and buried the egg right next to the sea, and it just got washed away. And I guess I can understand Mothra not being able to fly around like in this storm because she's a moth. Her wings can get damaged. I get that. So as reporters that already know that these guys are up to no good, the reporters go in and ask the Happy Enterprises guys just to return the egg. Just give the Shobijin back their egg.
Mothra's egg.
Yeah. This is a living being. It's Mothra's child. Mothra's a god being. What are you thinking, you idiots? And they're like, no, we're not going to give it back because we spent money on it. It's ours legally. And then the reporters bring out the Shobijin, and this is where the Happy Enterprises guy says, "How much for your little girls?" "I want to buy your children." And they're like,
"Sell me your family."
Yeah. "How much for your women?" Yeah. So the twins decide, the hell with this. We're going to go back to Infant Island. Humanity is a piece of crap. You're all just here for the quick buck. And the reporters are like, I guess there's just nothing we can do. They give up really easily. They don't go to like the Japanese government and say, you need to just claim this egg with the JDF, like the Self-Defense Force, and bring it back to Infant Island because this is only going to cause tears.
But Mothra is on the hillside.
That's something that kind of, it's like, what is this, like stealth moth? I mean, how did they like not know that or Mothra was showing up? I mean, they just like looked up and then there he was.
Yeah. I guess Mothra has a very, very slim radar profile, I guess.
And why didn't Mothra just pick up the egg?
See, I don't understand that. Like, yeah, why
she can pick up Godzilla with the tail?
Yeah, she can. She can actually pick up Godzilla, which she does later on. Why can't she pick up this egg? She could have just gone in and just wrecked the greenhouse that they built around the egg and taken her egg back.
Yep. End of story.
Well, no, because that could have been like an interesting movie from that point on, because now you have like this weird battle between this Happy Enterprises people like trying to claim that they've been robbed, right? And sending like mercenaries out to go get the egg back from Infant Island, and these reporters and like the self-defense force going out to try to like actually defend Mothra or something like that, and then like the Happy Enterprises guys get a hold of Godzilla to like let him loose on the island. So that would have been an interesting Mothra versus Godzilla thing. Like Godzilla is hired as like a mercenary for it somehow.
No.
Like they just draw him out there. I don't know. It's weird. But I guess they need to have a movie. So Mothra is too weak to pick up the egg. Because Mothra is dying. We do learn that. We do learn that. Mothra is dying.
And then we go to the laboratory that they're cleared for the radiation.
Yeah, because they've been irradiated from carrying around this Godzilla scale for a long time.
Into into a lab.
Oh, go ahead, Chuck.
The piece of.
I don't know. Realistically speaking, I mean, it was really nice for the scientists to to steam clean their suits for them, but B, is that much radioactivity really going to bother lizard people?
Yes.
I mean, how do we know that these reporters are who they say they are? Especially when we start getting into some of the later films in the late '60s, early '70s.
That is true. They could be coming from like Venus. They could be coming from one of those Planet X's.
They could be space cockroaches.
They could be. They could be. It's possible, and I'm sure that we will repeatedly point out in later films, like what Destroy All Monsters we've already talked about. There's weird ass aliens in that are like, what do they turn into?
Well, I know that there's like in Mechagodzilla. I seem to recall them turning into like half human, half ape, Planet of the Ape type of or aliens. But there was another one. Maybe it was Terror of Mechagodzilla. I forget which, but they actually do turn into bugs, like cockroaches when they die.
Well, I know that the creatures in Destroy All Monsters, they like when they get too hot. It's too hot, right? That they get too hot, they like melt right out of their clothes into something and like scurry away, like they're little crystals or something like that. I don't know. It's weird. It's weird. So these people might be like the crystal people from Destroy All Monsters. We don't know. They could be Venusians for all we know. Hint for the next movie, right?
Yeah,
they could be.
Maybe a little foreshadowing here.
A little foreshadowing. But anyway, yeah, they were very radioactive because they've been carrying around this Godzilla scale for a while. And the scientists are like, my God, you need to tell us where you found this because we need to go make sure that there isn't any contamination of the countryside, because if Godzilla like shed out here at some point, that's a environmental catastrophe that's waiting to happen. It is happening. We just need to clean it up. So they go out with a Geiger counter.
A Geiger counter in suits with a stick that has radiation.
Oh yeah, they have the little radiation sign on a stick. They're just like carrying
I love
around.
that.
but the Geiger counter is great, and it just starts. They don't find anything. They find nothing.
They find the construction site
that's been
mud.
Drained. Yeah, that's been drained from the pumps from earlier. Okay,
but the construction site has been leveling it out. And
yes.
Then all of a sudden,
then the Geiger counter goes insane, and they're
then
like,
the mud moves.
Then the mud moves, and I go, you know what's coming? Yeah.
What happens with the female reporter, the camera girl, that looks up and goes, yeah, it was because it was through her camera. She goes, you might want to see this.
Yeah, I think the ground's moving, and like I think that's the councilman's out there like thinking he's going to have like a positive news story about him on how wonderfully he's recovered all this land so quickly after the tsunami, not the tsunami, the storm,
the typhoon.
Yeah, this typhoon that came through. He's like, I've kept my promises, and then Godzilla erupts from the sand and basically wrecks everything.
A typhoon, a hurricane, whatever you want to call it.
Hubris. Godzilla is your answer. But so Godzilla immediately starts attacking heavy industry
and oil refinery.
Yeah, because as one does. And fire trucks are dispatched, and he ends up wrecking some landmarks. What are the things that he wrecks?
The TV tower. and tears down the castle again.
There's another castle he tears. Is it the same castle though?
I think it's
That is Nagoya Castle.
Okay.
See, that's the same castle. I told you.
Okay. So the reporters, and this is where I think the movie actually does do something good. The reporters come up with this idea that they're just going to go ask Mothra for help because Godzilla's rampaging around Japan. No one can really do a damn thing to him. And the only other creatures that ever seem to harm Godzilla are other kaiju. So we got to go out to Infant Island and ask our friends, the Infant Islanders, for help. So they fly out in an amphibious plane and they land on Infant Island where they see
skeletons and
they
skeletons
see like yeah, because
skeleton.
Infant Island is just a wasteland for nuclear testing. And
Of
we get to
many
see the most important kaiju of all, Darlene.
The skeleton
Skeleturtle.
skeleton.
Chuck Skeleturtle's in that scene. It's the one time we see Skeleturtle in the movies. Did you notice Skeleturtle?
I noticed the bones.
He waves at you.
Yeah, believe it or not, and I had to look this up. Skeleturtle is a thing. You can even find like Funko pop like figurines of this thing. It is literally a skeletal turtle, but its head moves when they come ashore.
And his
eyes blink.
His eyes blink, and the
like his foot comes up and kind of waves.
Yep.
And it turns out that this was not like a weird mistake with a prop. It was a conscious choice to show that this nuclear testing has devastated the animals on Infant Island, and that is a strange monster that is still alive. It looks like a skeleton, but there's a turtle that is a skeleton that is still alive on Infant Island. A conscious choice that was still alive. So like you can go on the Godzilla wiki and look up Skeleturtle.
Oh, I'm looking at it right now.
I went down a rabbit hole with Skeleturtle. It was because I thought it was a mistake too. Like, oh, that turtle's moving. It's bones. What the hell? Did it just blink? What the hell's going on here? Chuck, you're looking it up. I'm surprised you didn't know about that. That's weird. That is weird. So they're brought into a cave by
and given red juice.
Yeah, they're given red juice. So my first thought when I saw that they were given red juice, I thought they're going to pass out because this is the red juice from King Kong versus Godzilla, but it's not. It's actually the red. Some of the natives actually are entirely painted in red, and those are the people that went out and got them from the shore. And it's because this is the stuff that protects the Infant Islanders from radioactivity that we saw in Mothra. Okay, the first Mothra film. And I'm like, okay, great callback.
They need to paint Godzilla with this red.
Yeah, it would protect everybody because it would probably stop it. But anyway, they're made to drink this liquid, and then they ask the chief of Infant Island for Mothra's help, but he says no. And they hear the fairies singing, and even the fairies are like, "We don't want to help you. You are all dicks. You won't give us back Mothra's child. What the hell's wrong with you? You deserve everything that kind of what's coming to you." And Yunko, the female photographer, makes this really passionate speech about how the world isn't perfect, and yeah, there's groups of people out there that are out to harm people, but not everyone on Earth is like that. Not all human society is like that. There's a lot of people out there that are innocent and being hurt by this stuff and being hurt by Godzilla. And the only way that we can make the world a better place is all working together. Yeah, we screwed up, but we're here as like people that truly did want to help, asking for your help. And I guess Mothra kind of hears this. And according to the Shobijin, Mothra says that she'll help.
Even though she's dying.
Even though she's dying, and she's wanted to spend her last days on Infant Island because this is like her seat of power, so to speak. At the very least, she might be able to go and see her egg for like one last time. She's dying, she's weak, she won't be able to do much, but she'll do whatever she can. Which is great. I think that's a really good scene that's on Infant Island. So back in Japan, the military is luring Godzilla into another electric trap because they haven't learned from like the two other times that they've tried it. It doesn't work.
And
Yeah, they're
they're
just upping
back
the voltage.
in that area.
They're just upping the voltage. That's true. Um,
And
we have the Happy Enterprises guy and like the mobster dude that was funding him fighting over money.
well, the Happy Ender was a mobster too.
And
And
they actually
Godzilla is just outside the window.
well, no, he's miles away because Godzilla's kind of tall. Let's be honest. He's kind of on the horizon.
Okay, but he's
coming this way, right? But they really get into a fight and beat the hell out of each other.
well,
they really
the
go at
businessman
it.
shoots the other.
Yeah, and then like they have like a bag full of money, and the one like mobster kind of guy puts it all into a bag, and then Godzilla actually just ends up wrecking the entire hotel and burying this guy underneath rubble.
And the other one gets out with.
He's fine though, right? Like he ends up okay.
Yeah, well, kind of. I mean, the thing that kind of surprised me is that you look at like all that money that they had, all that yen, and it was like just in this flimsy cabinet that you could like that you could jimmy a lock open with a letter opener.
Oh, you could take a fire axe that thing and just peel it open like a tin can. Like, yeah, that was kind of crazy, right? That was a weird choice.
Yeah, and it was the Happy Enterprise guy opens it up with a pick.
No, he just walks up and opens it up.
Oh.
I didn't think there was a pick involved at all in that.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think so. But then, like, the Happy Enterprises guy gets shot in the head. Like, he's just shot in the head and killed. And I thought, boy, that's pretty intense. That's pretty intense. So Godzilla heads towards the Motha egg because Godzilla is being challenged in his dominance of Japan by an egg, I guess. I don't know really why he's going towards the egg. But now Mothra shows up just as Godzilla is about to stomp the egg. And the fighting scenes, the monster fighting scenes in this are fantastic. Like the sets are great. But here's the thing. Mothra comes in and she creates this like windstorm with her rings. And
her wings, not rings.
With her wings, she's making this windstorm. And Godzilla's kind of really dazzled by it. And then she grabs his tail and starts dragging him away to like a depression. Am I correct? Like a little dip in the ground. And that's where she like starts buffeting him with her wings and like laying down the yellow pollen dust off her wings. And it's like choking Godzilla, I guess. And they describe it as some sort of poison. It's acting like some sort of poison. Okay, fine, whatever.
No, in other movies, it's been like her scales or something like that, and her scales off the wings,
and this is where it hurts because mommy and daddy are fighting. Godzilla nails Mothra's wing with atomic breath, and she's really badly wounded. And she kind of flutters over to her egg, drapes herself over it, and dies. Like she's protecting her egg, and it's actually for a big silly monster suit, right? Like, it's not really a suit. Mothra isn't really a suit. Mothra is just like a large prop. For a big silly prop, it's actually kind of moving. Here's a mother trying, like her last moments is to go to her child that's not yet born to protect it in some way, shape, or form.
And I thought it would hover over it.
Yeah, hover over it, and then she just kind of dies there, and like her life just goes out of her. And I thought that was actually really well done with a prop. Very good prop use. I don't know. That's about the best way I can say it. So the military starts attacking again to drive Godzilla into these electrical wires. And this is one of the most amazing special effects shots in this movie that was unintentional. And maybe Chuck, you'll know what I'm talking about here. It's when there's these giant fiery explosions right around Godzilla.
Oh, and they set him on fire.
Yeah, the whole suit catches on fire, but specifically his head.
Mm-hmm.
And that was unplanned. They kept it in the movie because it looked amazing, but it damaged the suit badly enough that they had to rebuild it again for the next movie. Because I guess it melted parts and singed parts. The gills on Godzilla's neck, it's where the suit actor actually can look out of. if you notice that, they're way wider than they should be later in this film. And it's because of this giant fire effect. I think actually made the gills peel open a little bit because you can actually see the suit actor through them. Okay. That's I'm not going to ding the movie for that because that's like a wicked bad accident. I'm surprised that the suit actor wasn't harmed because the suit just catches fire. It was amazing. Godzilla knocks down the electrical pylons and just continues because this is like try 3 with electrical pylons with increased.
Doesn't he melt one?
Well, no, I think they turned it up to like maximum, the voltage up to maximum.
So they turned up to 11.
Yeah, they turned it up to. Am I correct? Yeah, because the wires melt, and they actually use nichrome wires from a toaster oven to show like these wires melting. And I actually thought that was a really good effect. Yeah, it's a practical effect. It looks good. Military ends up going to Plan B, and they drop as many nets on him as possible, and then fire off Tesla coils on these electrical pylons to like continually shock him. He breaks free and melts the pylons and tanks with atomic breath. So we now have another stretch of countryside ruined by radioactivity. But Mothra's egg starts glowing as you hear like the prayers and singing from both the Shobijin and from the Infant Island natives. They're kind of singing and chanting back on Infant Island, and the egg glows, and then it cracks, and not one but 2 larval Mothras come out. And I'll be fair, I was kind of caught up in the movie at this point. I've seen this movie before, but I was caught up in it, and I for whatever reason, it slipped my mind that there were twin Mothra larvae that would come out, and I was so excited to see that. And I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this now. But I thought that was really cool. It makes sense to me. There's always these like twin Shobijin. Why can't there be twin Mothras? I don't know. I liked it. Darn it. They take off towards Godzilla, and one larva bites Godzilla's tail as he whips F out of it. that larva gets beaten badly.
Yeah, it looked like the puppet was going to be destroyed.
Oh yeah, no, its segments looked like it was actually coming apart.
Yeah, there's one section, like right up where the shoulders, right behind the head, where you can like see the seam just opening right up.
Yeah, it was violent what they were doing with these props. And the other starts spitting silk, and finally they both start spitting silk all over Godzilla, and he's trying to escape with his atomic breath, and he is just melting rock with it. He's like slagging giant piles of rock, just turning it into molten rock.
Same.
Meanwhile, he's being attacked by Silly String.
Yeah, he's being attacked by Silly String, and he finally tumbles into the water and disappears.
Of course, we know what happens.
Yeah.
That, in King Kong versus Godzilla, it's the same thing. Godzilla falls to the water and disappears, and now he's like hiding under a beach.
He has gills. He's fine. He's fine, right? And then the reporters see the Mothra larva swimming out to sea, and you hear the Shobijin saying, "We're going back to Infant Island. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Sayonara. Sayonara." And the end.
Yeah, credits roll, and then the pharmaceutical companies, they show up and make a bid for Mothra's carcass, thinking about everything they can make out of that.
Cargo and the eggs.
And the eggshell and the egg, like fluids that are inside. All that Silly String that got shot everywhere that missed Godzilla. That has some
I'm sure it has military applications.
Hey, that's probably how we got those strings for.
No. That's already happened. The steel string that held King Kong underneath helium balloons.
Yep.
No. See, that's already happened.
Hold on. I gotta check. Mothra versus Godzilla was in 1964.
Yeah.
And King Kong versus Godzilla was 1963. All right.
So it's already happened.
And then Mothra was in 1961. Of course, they didn't have like a Mothra larva or larva in that movie that I recall.
What, in the original Mothra? Yeah, they did.
They did?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. He climbs up on out of the tower and cocoons himself, and then
Yeah.
emerges as
So
yeah,
that's
yeah.
where the silly string. No,
Yeah. Okay. It's possible.
Darlene's theory could hold up.
It's possible. It's possible. They developed the steel silly string from Mothra
Mothra's.
silk. Mothra silk. Okay. It's possible. It's possible.
Yeah,
It's
I
all in
gotta
the same
say that.
continuity.
Yeah, that actually would have been really cool if they'd actually, or if that had actually happened and they actually put that into the film.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
where did this come from? Oh, we developed. Remember Motha, the giant moth?
Yeah. That weird ass moth that cocooned itself on Tokyo Tower that we had to hit with Davy Crockett's. Yeah. Anyway, I loved this movie. It had a lot like the miniature stuff in it is really good. Like better than a lot of these Godzilla films. There's miniature stuff in here that really made me smile that I had to go back and watch again, like the pumps. Because the pumps were miniatures, but you could barely tell they were. You had to look at the water to see that they were pumps.
The water
the
that's
miniatures.
the water that's spilling out.
Yes.
Not the water that, because they like put the pumps on top of something that was a dam.
You know what? I bet you they built it on. I bet you they built it on the side of Toho's big water tank. I bet you that's what it was. It was just built on the side of Toho's water tank with all the fish. They needed to drain it. They're going to build miniature pumps and actually make them work. I mean,
because it was it was a cement
yeah,
dam like thing.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. But all the miniature stuff in this is great. Like, and we get some great shots of Godzilla melting tanks again, which is fantastic. I don't think we get to see him melt tanks in the new Legendary movies. I don't think we ever see him melt a tank.
There's no Sherman's left after what he's done.
But there's at least in the first one when he's in San Francisco, there's military personnel around. You'd think that like he'd get to melt one tank.
Is this the one that had the funny gun on top of the tank, the turret on top of the turret?
Yeah. The tanks actually had like dual turrets in this movie. They're
Is it
clearly
this one or the next one?
Yeah, it's this one. It's this one. But what are your thoughts overall, Chuck?
Well, the Tsuburaya book, Eiji Tsuburaya, Master of Monsters. I mean, they praise this film as easily or Tsuburaya's best work. Interestingly enough, something I didn't realize until I looked up in the book was like I'll give you a quote here. They also came up with a magnificent wire-operated marionette Mothra, nearly 10 feet long, with a 30-foot wingspan, whose intricate movements were operated via radio control, and they used it along with two scale mechanicals from the original film. So for the twin larvae.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, they had like it says here that the crew created two swimming mechanicals and two crawling mechanicals, and the crawlings were operated via a radio control.
That's pretty cool. I can only think of one Godzilla movie where Mothra looks better, and I'm not counting the Legendary films. And it's one of the later 1990s movies where it's the Millennial Godzilla, but it's because the Mothra that they have in there, they actually have this. I'm sure that we're going to review those as well at some point, but how they made Mothra's wings move.
You're talking about Final Wars?
It might be in Final Wars, but they had pulleys on Mothra's wings that pulled it down as well as up. So the wings really moved quickly and gave a really strong motion to them.
Is that the one that they actually put feathers?
Yeah, that there's like feathers that they wove into it to make it even like a little iridescent, naturally iridescent. Like it's really good. But this is next to that. This is the best. This is a really good Mothra, very good Mothra.
Yeah, I gotta say, I wish that that they had a making of this film with interviews and everything, because or at least like a behind the scenes, because in the Tsuburaya book it talks about in a couple of the the battles, at least one of them between Godzilla and Mothra, they're talking about using like high speed lenses along with the strobing camera effects, so it gives you like to give you that that effect where Mothra is just flapping his wings just furiously, despite the
Mhm.
fact that when you think about the size and the scale of these models, how it would be very difficult for them to actually get them to move that fast. So
Yeah.
they were using like our camera tricks, or at this point, um, in order to get that full effect. And it's just it just sort of I mean, we just loved. Yeah, they say it's described as or it might be described as a form of stop motion photography, and
Mhm.
it's like, God, just you just from a historical standpoint, from an animator standpoint, you just you just wish you could sit down with them for an hour, and it's like, okay, how did you do this?
Yeah. No,
But
it looks good. There are many shots in this that look very good with them
but to
fighting.
do a 1964, you'd have to do all the films of 1964 that way though,
What do you mean?
because they were done all in a short period of
Oh
time.
yeah, yeah. No, I mean there are four films that Toho put out from 1964 alone.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, yeah. King Ghidorah, or Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, and Mothra vs. Godzilla were both released in '64.
What
and
were the
there's
others
one
two?
non-Godzilla one that got released in 1964, and but it's still a kaiju film. I forget which one. Boy, and it's. I read this and now can't pull it out of
Well,
my head.
well, it wasn't Atragon. That was released in '65. Um,
But as we're taping, I'm not gonna go. Hold on, guys. Let me type. But yeah, I remember reading that there was like four movies released by Toho in 1964 that were all being worked on at the same time. But the reason was uh, that they could not use Mothra later on in the next movie was because there were too many flying creatures as it was, and they didn't want all the lines tangled. So that's why they didn't use a flying Mothra, at least in the next movie. Otherwise, they could have. So what do you have here, Darlene? You have in my big Criterion collection book that she just went and got. Um, 63 was King Kong versus Godzilla. 64 was Mothra versus Godzilla, and then Ghidorah was in 1964.
are you thinking of like Dogora? Dogora the
It
space monster?
it could be Ghidorah because it's a non-Godzilla kaiju film, and then there was like a standard like non-sci-fi movie that Toho was doing.
Yeah, well, Dogora was in Japan. That was in '64, but uh, they released it in 65 here in the States.
Yeah, I just remember also reading in this thing that I read that each one of these movies by itself took 4 months to complete. So there was overlapping production for all of these. So there might have been some of these same techniques that they used with Mothra used in the next film, but just not with Mothra, with King Ghidorah or Rodan.
So what I was saying is that you'd have to get the information about all those films,
All those films and put it together
to
in
put
one.
it together, because they were using the same crews and everything.
Yeah, the same actors in many regards. So I don't think there's a lot that doesn't work. In fact, I think this is one of the few Godzilla films that I can say has a worthwhile human plot.
Yes, it does. It has a
Like I actually cared about the characters, the reporter and the photographer, Ikiro and Yunko. I actually cared. And that's something to be said. I even thought that it was nice putting in that like local councilman who was talking about like recovering after this typhoon.
You mean the mayor?
Yeah, mayor, councilman,
I
whatever
think
he
it was
is.
mayor.
Sure. I thought it was good, but I can't really think of anything that does not work in this movie.
No, the whole thing was really solid.
It's a solid film, yeah. Any more thoughts that you have, Chuck?
No, most of the times the I don't know, for when I'm watching these films as an adult, a lot of times I'll default back to when I was a kid, where I just kind of like phased in and out during the human interest stuff, because all I really want to see is just the kaiju battles. But this one did a really good job holding my interest. So
Yeah, I think. See, I'm approaching this as I'm really interested in the human stuff because I know I'm going to enjoy the monster fights. So I look at my notes and I generally don't have a lot written down for the monster fights, even though there's lots of really cool things that happen in them. because I'm just living in the moment of the monster fights, but I'm writing a lot of information down about the human plot because I'm interested in that and I'm getting something out of it. Like there's some of these movies, I guarantee you that my human plot is just going to be so and so has a problem. I think that's like what it was in Godzilla Raids Again when we watched that. The human plot was confusing and kind of pointless, unless it was like at the end with the one guy sacrificing his life by slamming into the mountain. Like that was the only kind of interesting bit of the human stuff. And you realized, oh, he was in love with the secretary, and that he had
the daughter.
he left that picture behind in his journal or something like that, and she cried. And I was like, okay, I guess that's nice, but that should have been built up a little better throughout the film. With this, it's I care about the Shobijin, I care about the reporters. They're actually interesting, and the villain humans are kind of so over the top that they're fun. And it's not like they get out of this stuff scot-free either. There is like consequences to their actions. One guy gets shot in the head, and the other guy gets crushed, right, by Godzilla in the end.
Mm-hmm.
So the monster, like, okay, fine, people pay the price.
Wasn't there something else that somebody was almost running through the crowd? That people were running up the mountain, and then he ends up getting the landslide on him or something. Was that this one or the next one?
I think that's the next one.
That's the next one. See, Darlene, it's the next scene. It's the next movie. You always bring it up. It's always every review.
It's kind of neat that you see them not getting away with.
Yeah. I like seeing that. But I think this is another one of those movies of that Toho does that shows kind of the evils of
Human
over capitalism, like over like evil. There's a lot of like bad corporations. Like there's good people, but there's bad corporations.
And then there's bad people.
There's bad people.
This one shows bad people and then good people.
Yeah.
And even though,
am I off base on that, Chuck?
No, it's the God. Which one was it? Was it King Kong versus Godzilla? I mean, it was like the subtext there was about the dangers of hypermaterialism. So I can see that they're kind of holding through here in this film. They're working through that theme. So
yeah, at least they aren't cargo culting people in this one. And I did not see anybody in blackface.
Let's go to Infant Island and we'll bring some packs of cigarettes. See what Mothra will do for us.
Like, yeah, the Infant Island people are interesting. Like they're not looked down on.
I was curious as to why they called it Infant Island.
I don't know. I didn't.
It was like wondering. It says like kind of a play on the two little the two little fairy twins, or
it could be like
because of their size, or that's a good idea.
It could be innocence. But
yeah, screen time wise, and I'm going back to the research done by Mr. Smigel. This one is listed as out of the kaiju films that they've done thus far, 10 minutes 30 seconds out of 88 minutes, so almost 12% of the film is kaiju battles. But it feels like there's a lot more screen time dedicated to them because of how they spaced out the appearances of Godzilla and Mothra.
Yeah, it does feel like they're on screen most of the film, which is weird.
But it didn't feel like all monsters where it was all at one point.
Yeah, it is. It's really spread out.
You have the human and the taking place at the same time, hand in hand.
Yeah, you have them going to Infant Island and seeing Mothra, and Mothra's there, and okay, great. But Mothra's not really involved in anything yet, but we get to see Mothra. And then you come back, and now there's Godzilla. And, once it really takes off, it's spread out and paced very well. I can't honestly think of anything that does not work in this movie. I don't think it's a perfect movie by any means, but this is a really good Godzilla film.
From an animator's perspective,
kaiju film.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, from an animator's perspective, there are some other tricks that I kind of wonder, or how they did. Obviously, the how they could have painted direct on film for the and then compositing that with Godzilla's his dorsal fins every time he fires his atomic breath. But there's a scene where the egg just sort of cracks,
Yeah,
and
that's
you
drawn.
know,
Yeah.
yeah, it's sort of like, okay, now are we talking, another instance of direct on film, or did they take like, did they go frame by frame with either painting directly on the original footage that they filmed for this sequence of that egg, or did they just like lay another sheet of cellulose over it, like, or another or film stock over it? Because when it gets to the end and it actually cracks apart, you could see that the cracks in that final frame matched the pieces, the fragments that were being flung from the from the egg.
Really?
So, yeah, it's just trying to
Wow.
just thinking back on how I would have done it. It seems like, it would be a good situation where they could just film the entire sequence and then, explode the egg out, Mothra's, larva come out, and so on, and then go back afterwards and almost do it in reverse. So where you can see where the fragments of the model are going to be bursting out, and just like starting with like, okay, one frame before that, or before the remote controlled explosion happens, let's go ahead and start detailing cracks, and go all the way up um the way up the egg, and just go and just, you know each successive frame as you go backwards in
Hmm.
time on the footage. You just, you've got like, your framework already done. You know what the end product is, and so just going backwards, frame by frame.
It's possible
So,
they did that. It is possible.
yeah,
It,
that
it looked very good.
yeah. It was really, really well done. It's just like, logically, it's like, what would be the most logical way that they could approach this with the amount of time that they had in order to produce this particular scene and do the special effect.
Hmm.
Because
Yeah.
you're looking at like several things coming together from both the live action footage and the animated section leading up to it. So,
They also made a really good where you see the humans underneath the egg, and
I think
the
they were
coloring was pretty good.
I think they built like a prop that was a full scale prop that they built like the lower half of it so they could stand next to it. Because I mean, if there was one complaint I had about the movie is that there was some really kind of dicey chroma key in
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. I
But
think that's the scene that Darlene was talking about. There's like one scene where they're right there, and you can tell that they're in front of a screen.
yeah, but I mean that's so minor.
Hmm.
It's such a minor part of the film, and it's not really an important special effects shot. So it's fine. You can just kind of pass over it. No big deal. Any final thoughts about this movie?
I would definitely recommend it. Like I said, the Subaraya book says that it's universally, you know, lauded as one of or one of the best Godzilla films, and so I would definitely recommend people watch it.
Yeah, I recommend this movie. Darlene, you recommend it?
Yes, I
This
recognize it.
this is definitely one of the best Godzilla movies. It also sets the stage for Godzilla and Mothra later on being friends, which I mean, it really takes off in the next movie. But this kind of shows that Godzilla and Mothra at least have this equality about them. That they even though Mothra is kind of this gentle giant, she's not a pushover, and I guess there's a respect between them.
Now,
Anyway,
one question I do have, I know we talked a little bit about this before we started recording. I watched this on HBO Max from the Criterion Collection version that they had there, and we were locked into the Japanese audio with the um, with the English subtitles. And I have to wonder. I mean, it was released in here in the States. I believe it was like Godzilla versus the Thing, and I'm wondering, like, on the Criterion Collection DVD set, did they have that version as well, or was it just the Japanese version?
I can look at it because I have the Showa era films set here next to me. Um, as far as I can tell, there is no American version for it. Yeah, it's only the Japanese version. I'm making sure. Yes. Yes. So it's only the Japanese version in this. The Showa era films box set that I have, it's like a book. It actually has international English language dub tracks for Invasion of the Astro Monster, Son of Godzilla, Destroy All Monsters, Godzilla vs. Megalon, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, and Terror of Mechagodzilla. So those have English dub tracks. Everything else is in Japanese.
Fair enough.
Okay, well, all right. So we'll leave it there, folks. We all recommend this movie. We enjoyed watching it. Seeing Mothra is always a joy for me. I don't know. I love Mothra. You love Mothra. Everyone loves Mothra. Like,
happy, beautiful creature.
That's right.
That's huge, though.
Yes. Now, I mean, and one last thought. Like when we were watching the last Legendary film where Mothra comes in after trying to like save Godzilla from King Ghidorah. And she just gets blasted and she's like smoking and all that. And she like lays down her life for Godzilla. Like, watch this film and then think of that. Like there's an actual story arc that happens even with the original Japanese movies where this friendship becomes like they are inseparable, that they're both kind of this pairing that defends Earth and humanity. Like Godzilla's Earth's champion, Mothra's like humanity's champion. It's an interesting play, but we'll leave it there. I hope you enjoyed listening. So I'm Aaron.
I'm Darlene.
And we have our special guest.
And I'm Chuck. And thanks again, as always, for the invitation.
Yep. And so
good evening.
And keep watching the skies.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at thisweekingeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.